Hi, we're the Mastelottos, and you're listening to Progcast.
Welcome back to another episode of the Progcast, and as you just heard, I have the wonderful opportunity to talk to Pat and Deborah Mastelotto, calling from the United States. Hi, how are you doing?
We're doing okay.
Great.
Great to talk to you. You guys, actually, Pat, of course, you are a member of King Crimson. You have been a member of King Crimson for a long time now, since 1994, and you are the third member of King Crimson to be on the Progcast. I had the pleasure and honor to talk to Jacko and Gavin last fall because they both had new albums coming out, right? And now you guys have also a new album coming out, and that is called The Romantic's Guide to King Crimson.
Were you surprised when you saw it?
Not that much, because I mean the title harks back, of course, to there's been like box sets, The Young Person's Guide to King Crimson and A Beginner's Guide to King Crimson, and that would I would assume that this originally came from Benjamin Britten's Young Person Guide to the Orchestra, obviously. That would have been my guess. So it fit right in with the King Crimson universe. And of course it's something new, and I'm very eager to hear your your story about this album, how this album came to be, as I had the opportunity to listen to it already, and it's beautiful, and it's very intricate arrangements, and I believe you guys worked the whole of last year on it, right? Or most of it.
Quite a bit.
We started it before the lockdown, but Pat couldn't tour.
Yeah, we started in 2019. So we were already starting this before COVID struck. And that just gave us more time. I mean, I've never been home this long in my adult life.
Probably in your life. In our relationship, for sure. I've never had him home this much for this continuous length of time. It's been really fun. I feel guilty saying that, but we've nestled in. I'm baking like a fiend,
House smells like bread all the time, or Italian food.
I've perfected
Mexican
a lavender
food.
cheesecake, and his studio is right upstairs, and so while we were working on this, he could just say, "Hey Deb, come up here, let's work on blah blah blah," or I want you to redo this one vocal, or here, they sent the violin part, listen to it and see what you think about it. Or, we got to do that. I don't know how many people get to make a record like that where you're completely accessible to the producer, to the drummer, to the girl singer. And then we have the internet, so.
How did you come up with the idea in the first place? Maybe let's start there.
Well, it's an old observation when you're touring with a progressive rock band, in particular King Crimson, that there are less women than men. You can see it from the audience. You can see it clearly at the intermission if you go to the bathroom. So these are long-standing jokes, not just with King Crimson, but I think every prog, metal prog, So I married Deborah in 2010. She first saw Crimson in 2008. We did a short tour with Gavin, with Adrian still in the band. So it was a 5-piece that year, 2008. And she witnessed it herself. So we started to talk about that. And the fact that that there's a lot of beautiful Crimson music, but there's also a lot of this heavy, dark stuff. And it was just an ongoing conversation, really, for years. And what kicked it into high gear was about 10 years ago, we started to do a camp. There's the Music Masters Camp. It's up in the Catskills in New York. And they had done Medeski, Martin Wood, other jam band types, Allman Brothers, and they ask us if we'd like to do it. So what we do at that camp is we interact with those musicians. There's about 100 of them. And we realize that they're all great artists. They're just people, they could have been the drummer in King Crimson, but he went a different place with his life. Different things happen to people.
Get married, have kids.
Yeah, different responsibilities. So most of them are, I would say, I would say well off. They're people that have succeeded in life, but not in music, but they still love music and they want to come back to it.
They're also Crim heads, if I use that term correctly. They're huge King Crimson fans. You would have to be, Pat Mastelotto, Adrian Belew, Tony Levin, and all the offshoots in the family. Marcus Roeder shows up, Julie Slick shows up for Marco Machera shows up. We end up with these great musicians because of your love of King Crimson. And so they're musicians, but they're also huge Crimson fans.
So here's the part I was going to say kick-started this, was about 5 years ago at the camp. Instead of just playing Genesis songs and stuff like that, Tony Levin and his brother Pete started a jazz cafe. So they'd play some lighter, quieter stuff down in a different area. The camp is a really big place. We have a big barn to work in. We have a roadhouse, like a bar, bears, raccoons, but also this little jazz cafe downstairs. And unbeknownst to me, Deborah had popped in there and she got called on stage to sing. So she sang a couple pieces at the jazz night. People were telling me, man, your wife's got a beautiful voice. We started, when we left, talking about that. The campers often need a singer. They had her do Kate Bush's part when they were doing Don't Give Up with Tony. So there was opportunities there where Deborah sang, and that led us directly into the conversation of what if we made a record together, and what if we addressed the issue of women not latching on to Crimson as fast as men do. So
we had this idea of, when you were young and you wanted to impress a girl, and we used to have tapes and then went to CDs, cassette tapes. You'd make her a mixtape of romantic songs. So we had this idea in our head that we were going to create a mixtape of romantic King Crimson songs. People who love Crimson don't understand why no one else is jumping on board and loving them too, but sometimes they need a little help, and that's what this record is for people who want to give it to their wives or their girlfriends or their sisters or their mom. And say, here, Mom, these are King Crimson songs.
You wouldn't send Mom Thrack.
So my father is a King Crimson fan as well, and I had the honor to go with him to a King Crimson show in Stuttgart a couple of years ago, which was beautiful to witness that with him together. But yeah, that could be the thing that I could give to my mom. Going into the production and arrangement process, I mean, these arrangements are vastly different, most of them from the originals, of course. So did you do the arrangement like at home and then pick your instrumentalist from these pool of musicians that you met at the camp, or were they in any way involved in the arrangement process?
They were very involved. I mean, that's the blessing that Deborah was trying to describe, that they're very intimate. Almost all of them are very intimate with Crimson's music. So subtle details we didn't even need to discuss. So it was deliberate not to make the arrangements the same. There's no point in that. It was deliberate to avoid guitars, look for other avenues. We started actually by tracking here in this room, in my adjacent room, with Marty, Chris, and is there a third? But anyway, basically as a piano trio, as a lounge trio. So we started to build up the arrangements there. But but we took them as far as we could, and then I stripped them back and used those as a skeleton to start rebuilding the tracks. Those were 2 or 3 of the pieces, 2 hands. I'm not sure what else started.
We started
like
with Matakudazai, but we never finished Matakudazai until almost we were ready to finish the whole record.
Yeah, Marco Machera is a good example. I'm not sure if Machera, but we'd already worked on a couple versions of Matakudasai, and I kind of wanted to find that Lost Highway vibe, that David Lynch with the low trombones, slow 12/8, smoky jazz cafe vibe. And I expressed that to Marco, and then he sent me back some of the accompaniment, because I don't play any chordal instrument. So many of the tracks, I started by slowing down live versions or studio versions, and then I could play against that, and then we would have a drum, a scaffolding that we could start to build on top of.
And then with me changing the pitch so that it was something that I was comfortable singing, that changed the way it sounded as well. So you've got it slower, and then you've got a different pitch, and then you take off the guitars, and it's a different song.
Yeah, one arrangement, one song where this lack of guitars I found quite obvious was the arrangement of One Time, and I had a little bit of trouble getting into it because I love the original song so much. But yeah, these I mean, on the original song is already a bit of a slower and a softer song. And these guitars are quite delicate in the original, but yeah, the substitutes that you found with mellotron and flute or whatnot, there's a whole lot to uncover, I guess, in these arrangements. I think that there's probably a lot of instruments that you can you can listen to the album a lot of times, and then I just found another instrument, right?
I could just say about One Time that there are no mellotrons on there.
Okay.
We're very lucky that, in particular, there's a young man who plays bass, and he came to the camp and brought his parents, and his parents are part of the Houston Symphony. And she plays flute, and he plays
first flute.
Sorry,
I think she's first chair.
Yes, she plays flute, and he plays oboe. And when we expressed working with them on One Time, Corin, the father, he created a whole oboe orchestra. Chorus, if you want to call it that. I'll call it oboe orchestra.
Oboe choir.
Yeah, so he's multi-tracked himself. He did that at home, as well as she did a lot of her performance at home.
They have a home studio.
As well as their son. Then they came here. This was pre-COVID, around January, February last year.
Yeah.
So we'd already started before Christmas, and then when they came here for the weekend, it was great. He just stayed in his pajamas.
It was so fun. We had the best weekend.
Yeah, and besides working on the pieces we intended to work on, there was also an improv that became Peace. That was the two of them just improvising in the next room over. And capturing that on tape and using it later. And then their son, who's our guy from Primus, Les Claypool. He reminds me of Les Claypool, big, tall kid, and great bass player. He ended up playing bass on One Time and also on Sleepless, which is, that's an iconic bass line. We just threw it out the window and started with a different approach to Sleepless, but that left him with the responsibility to come up with a bass part that rises to the occasion there.
But that was the difficulty, if you will, with working with such beautiful songs. I mean, we got lucky because they were beautiful songs, but some of them are already done very well. Like, how can you reinvent Walking on Air? Like, we tried, and there's no way. I mean, there's no way I'm going to do it better anyway than Adrian, but even different wasn't as wonderful as the original. So with One Time, that's why we stuck that spoken word piece from Eyes Wide Open in the middle of it, to give it a different edge. It's not that we were trying to do it better. Who's going to do it better than Adrian Belew and King Crimson? No one. So you had to make it different to make it interesting, I think. And that's why we went in that direction. But some of them worked very, very well. When you're working with musicians who love King Crimson, invariably they'd keep saying,
they want to play the old parts.
Well, I know that Robert did XYZ, and we're like, don't worry about what Robert did. We want you to do what you would do here if you didn't know who King Crimson was and you had no idea, never heard it before. And it was hard to break the habit of listening to it, like you said, the way that you have loved it. So it's we're making a request of the audience to, put that on a shelf and listen to it as if you've never heard any of these songs before, because that's the way we approached it.
That reminds me a little bit of what Jaco said when I asked him how he approaches singing in King Crimson, because all of the studio versions were different singers, and he said, he just has. I mean, he said his way of singing is already informed by all these singers because he was listening to it when he grew up and got into music and all that. But when he approaches singing for King Crimson in a live setting, then he kind of has to forget how the original sounds to give his own voice a voice. That makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard maybe to appreciate if you're not in the band, but there is baggage that comes with being in an iconic band with a 25-year history. There's a lot of expectation, and there's a lot of people that are really attached to a particular lineup or a particular song.
So you, Deborah, you just mentioned that you tried around with Walking on Air, but it didn't really work out. So you had you tried with some more songs, but not all worked out, and this was like all those that worked out are on the album
Not
right now.
Not all of them.
You still got some for a follow-up?
Started out with 20. There was an event. The first time I ever saw King Crimson was 2008. And I will never forget a show in Chicago. I saw when that's the first time I ever saw Adrian Belew sing on stage, and he did Walking on Air. And there was a woman, obviously a long-term fan, walked out like almost in a trance, out of her seat, up to the front of the stage, and stood right directly in front of him while he's singing, tears streaming down her face. And security tried to move her, and he wouldn't let them. He let her stay right there and sang it to her. And I was floored. Like, it was such an intense emotional moment. And it made me really curious, what other King Crimson songs have that kind of emotional impact? You miss it sometimes with the cacophony and the time signatures and the amazing musicianship, that the lyrics are back there, kind of percolating. And so I kind of went on a hunt. As Pat, I would track down the lyrics to every song. I've got a whole collection of them, and thought, are these lyrics that I could sing? And then I'd like, hey, Pat, what can you, or he'd say, hey, Deb, you know what you might think about? And then he'd tell me to go, and I'd go track down so we've been doing this for a while, but that's why it was that emotional moment. And I feel the same way now. I've seen so many King Crimson shows. I've seen Jaco do Epitaph. I can't do Epitaph. I mean, not, the way he does it, I couldn't even find a way around it. It's on a list somewhere, but it never got done because of him, because seeing him do it so many times.
That kind of needs a big voice.
And I don't have a big voice. I have a soft voice.
It's no different with Deborah and her voice and myself with my drumming. I have my own limitations. So those box me into what material we can work with, things that I think I can be creative and complement.
I thought this felt almost like a limitation. He's singing with the girl singer. He has to play slow. The drums aren't the main thing.
That's not weird at all. Really.
I know, but it was really...
made a lot of records where, every record's a different judge and jury. It's going to go in a different place to a different audience. So I worked with a lot of women back in the old
days. Yeah, you did. It's been a while. So someone just introduced us with we're trying to figure out what section we'd go in a record store, and someone gave us this interesting lounge prog.
Give us a definition, a
We are
genre.
yes, we now have lounge prog as a genre. I'm in.
Okay, yeah, cool. We can try to coin that term. um, awesome. It's really a joy talking to you about this music. Pat, you've been involved in many other projects also for the last years. Yeah, mainly Stickman and O.R.k, I would guess. Um, they are obviously quite different to what you did here with this album. um, so what are your plans looking into the future? I mean, the future is uncertain in these uncertain times, right? So and there, I think there were huge plans with O.R.k, supporting System of a Down and everything. So and yeah, I think the last release was last year. You released another Stickman live album in Japan with Gary Husband, right? So I mean, there's been a lot going on. Is there any other studio project that you will dedicate your time to, waiting for the live thing to return?
Okay. I'll bring you quickly kind of up to speed. Yeah, O.R.k was very disappointed we couldn't do those gigs with System of the Down. It was attached another tour to that. That all went off the calendar. Obviously, all the gigs last year. The last gig we did play was Stickman. We went to Japan. We were going to go to China and Japan for a tour, and it ended up just doing one show. Gary Husband, an incredible drummer, but he's also an incredible keyboard player. So he joined us on keyboards. If we had done the complete tour, we probably would have found a way to do some sort of double drumming. So that was recorded, and that's just been released as Owari, which means the end in Japanese. Really great record, very proud of it. O.R.k, we've been working on the record since almost 2 years ago. There's well over 20 songs there too. We probably had about 10 finished before Christmas last year. And then I guess it was even earlier in the fall. Then there was a short break, and then the writing seemed to jump up a notch. So the last 6 or 8 songs rose to the top, and some of the earlier ones have sunk away. So the record is pretty much done. We haven't mixed it or completed it yet, but there's the 10 tracks that we think make a cohesive record are all 80, 90% done. A little bit. In the meantime, recording goes on forever in my house. I'm never just working on one project. I jump back and forth. Whenever I hit I don't know what to do, I'll just work on something else. So I've done a record with Lorenzo Feliciate. He's an Italian bass player. We had a group called Naked Truth for a while, which is sort of jazzy, with Graham Haynes was on and Roy Powell on keyboards. And this we recorded at Bill Laswell's place a few years ago, did a couple records there. We've been inactive for quite a while. So that's just Lorenzo and I, and it's called Portal. It's only on Bandcamp, and we're doing more of that almost every day. And then when I was listening to Portal, I had an idea, like, how would it feel with a DJ, a disc jockey, like when you used to drive late at night? Because we've taken some long trips, Deborah and I. We got a recreational vehicle, like what you might call a caravan. So we did some of the absorbing and post-production thinking by traveling, with our dogs in this
Long drives
across Colorado or Utah. What was I going to tell him there? Help me get back on course.
About taking one of your Portal songs.
Yeah. So I tried to be a DJ, and then I realized this isn't working, but Deborah could. So Deborah plays the part of the DJ, and there's 2 releases of that record on Bandcamp, the music straight up and the music with DJ. So the music's in a different order with different mixing, and it feels quite different. It's much more meditative. People have commented when they listen to it, the Deborah version, that it achieved its goal of making you kind of be, on the long highway drive. It's almost like an audiobook. it's telling a story with the music.
A story about listening to late night radio and being one of those people who listens to late night radio and what it feels like, the intimacy, almost like it's just between you alone in your room and this woman on the other side, talking to you basically. It's cool. It's one of my favorite things we've ever done together.
It reminds me of Play Misty for Me, if you remember that movie with Clint Eastwood, or what was the other one, The Vanishing Point or something? But anyway, where there's a DJ involved, that's part of telling a story that he's running parallel with, not totally submersed in, but they're I don't know. I do this quite a bit, and there's a term I got to remember what it is. Frank Zappa uses, where you lift things from other music and you emplace them almost randomly and see what events happen. So Portal kind of does that, the Portal DJ version, just by fate and coincidence. Like when did you ever put the Wizard of Oz movie with the Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon, and you think all the synchronicity must have been planned? I don't think it was planned. Anyway, many other projects. I can't think what else we're doing right now. I did a couple tracks for Frost. There's a prog band called Frost. I met those guys on the cruise to the Edge. I've been working with the Slovakian guitar player, David Kohler. We did a record called KoMaRa. It's probably more appropriate to your station. It's a heavy, dark record, and it's pretty cool. We've been working on some new tracks, and I was lucky to do some remixing too. Steven Wilson's, we sort of run parallel sometimes, and he just recently offered to let me mix a couple remix, not his, for alternative mixes for his new. And we did some of that about 10 years ago, and he gave me permission to go ahead and put that out. So I just put that on Bandcamp a few days ago. I'll send you links to all this if you want.
It's classic, Pat.
Yes, please. I will try to put the links to your Bandcamp and everything also in the description of the podcast and stuff, because as I see it, you work a lot with Bandcamp, with a lot of your releases.
We love Bandcamp.
Do you know why? I mean, Bandcamp, they're cool, man. They actually pay.
Yeah.
I don't really have any interest in Spotify. I don't even use it at all.
If you want to download or stream it, you can do it from Bandcamp. It's a great company too. You should read about them. They're very
I do get stuck with Spotify. I think yours is another one, right? Where you're available on Spotify.
Yeah.
So when I went,
we are our podcast is available on Spotify, also on Apple Podcasts, and also we put it also on YouTube. So of course also we try to get it to people who don't use Spotify. But as we don't play the music on the show, we have our accompanying playlist, and for that Spotify is of course very convenient and easy to use to have the playlist, but of course only with the music that is on Spotify. So I have seen on the Bandcamp page that so far 3 songs are available, like pre-singles to stream, to listen to. Two Hands and Matakuda's side, the first 2 songs, and the last song, Sleepless, on the album. So this episode is gonna come out on Thursday, February 11th, and the album is gonna drop on Valentine's Day, February 14th. So if you're listening to this before February 14th, you can hear those 3 songs on Bandcamp already. So will the album be eventually available on Spotify, or will you keep it Bandcamp only?
Well, that's a good question. At the moment, I said no to Spotify.
But
I said no to Spotify,
but
and
not
Rhapsody.
no to streaming. So
Yeah, you can still stream on Amazon,
Yeah.
because you have to, and iTunes and Bandcamp streams. And it'll probably all change before too long. But when I was first, just a few months ago, you know Trey Gunn?
Yeah.
Trey, bass player in Crimson. Trey has 7D Media. That's Trey's label. We're putting this out through Trey's label, and because he was interested and excited. so Trey gave me that, the option to put it. And I said, let's not do Spotify and all that stuff.
We can do it later. You can always add it.
And we'll put more songs out. I don't mind the music being out there for free. I kind of mind somebody like Spotify making a lot of money off musicians. That kind of makes me feel a little pissed off.
Yeah.
But as far as just releasing the music for free, I don't have a problem with that. I'd sooner people hear it than it just sit here in my house, So I'll gladly send you copies and give you permission to air them.
Awesome. Bandcamp is still doing the Bandcamp Fridays. Just like last Friday, there was one again. I think it's always the first Friday of the month. They started.
It changes a little bit. Now it's maybe every other month.
Okay, yeah, but you guys can go to the website. Is it bandcampfriday.com, and then it will say when the next Bandcamp Friday is, and it will come for sure, which is a cool thing where they waive their revenue. They started it last year when the first lockdown hit live musicians around the whole world, and
really important, Dario, for younger musicians, younger bands, up and coming bands, to have an avenue to release their music and a way to actually make some kind of money back from it.
Absolutely, and we do support that, and we also try to on the Prog space also highlight Bandcamp, the Bandcamp pages from bands, especially on the Bandcamp Friday.
I was going to say too, Stickmin, Marcus being German, you probably know, but we're very active. We have a tour planned for October over in Europe. I don't know if that'll all come together or not. Same tour we had last year, actually, just a couple of dates ahead.
Everyone did.
But Stickmin is very active on Bandcamp and releases a lot of our live shows and stuff that just doesn't have that big of an audience. But still, there are 30 or 50 or 100 people that want to hear those shows.
Yeah.
So,
I would really love to see you guys like in the Stickman constellation again. It's been like maybe 9 years or so when I saw you here in Munich. So
that might have been with Mike. Was it with Marcus or it's at Quasimodo?
I think it was already with Marcus. I'm not sure. I would have to research a little bit and see if the second album was already out. But my favorite is still the Soup record with a Firebird suite, I have to say. I love that.
Yeah, I just love that thing.
Yeah, Firebird and Soup. We don't play those much anymore because that was before Marcus was in the group.
Yeah.
Those two that I get requests for a lot.
We usually we end this our interviews with a little section that we like to call "What's in Your Walkman." So we ask our guests what they've been listening to lately, if there's anything they want to share with their fans, with our listeners. So is there anything that comes to mind?
Now you're making me start. Well, one of the things I've been listening to, and I started last year really, is girl singers who have soft voices like mine, and things that they, different ways that they're handling it, like different treatments. I'm obsessed. There's a Goldfrapp album called Song of Us, Story of Us, that I listen to constantly. And I was just introduced to a group called Echo, where she does reimaginings of old standards. It's really interesting, kind of an alternative thing. Look at Pat. Everywhere look at this.
Well, don't though.
Okay.
These are all unopened.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to
Okay. Sorry.
Pat, so, just grabbed a huge stash of CDs. That's the Discman.
Well, everywhere he goes, people hand him CDs of their bands and things, and a lot of times he'll say, "Here, listen to this." So I'll go for a drive and pop. I still have the CD player in my car and listen to it. We have every way to listen to music in this house. Pat even has a tape deck, Like he's got everything.
That's
Because
cool.
we have 2 turntables. Who does that? One in our bedroom and one in our living room. But when it comes to just listening to a CD, I love to take a long drive. I can really, when we were putting our album together and tried to figure out the order, we did that a lot. He would download the running order in his phone, and we'd just go for a long drive up in the hills and then come back when the sun is setting. And you really get a good feel for a record doing that, especially if the order of the running order that way.
Yeah, Dario, you haven't got the whole record yet, and I hope when you do, if you're that inclined to do so, that you listen to the whole thing in one chunk, because I'm an old guy. I still think of an album like that the sequencing and the mood it wants to take you through, and that's what Deborah's trying to describe. We actually spent weeks trying to just define. I mean, had it about 85% right immediately. But then little things like taking the intro off of a song so it joins up, even if they're not butt to butt, but so that they mesh better. So sometimes there were little surgical things like that, putting a little bit more music at the beginning
Extra
or
second
the
between
end.
a song or 2.
But just to try and catch the flow of a good flow for the record.
Beautiful.
So what am I listening to on my Walkman? Not a Walkman. I'm listening to the stuff I'm working on.
Always.
Unfortunately, you can't. You're in my room. I've been doing Drumeo, which is an online drum class. So Gavin's one of the teachers there. I haven't been taking many of Gavin's classes because I get enough of that on the side. But that I've been spending a lot of time with that. But there is a new record here. This one, I can show you. How do you see that? Now that is some of the Campers. Actually, quite a few of the Campers. And in fact, Wolfgang, I believe, is singing on this, a German man. What do they actually call it? Colors?
Banging Colors.
It's called Banging Colors. And I'll read you, if I can, the title of the record here. Hallucinogenic Treasures from the Convolution of an Imaginative Brain. It's the 1967 to 69 compilation. So I'm not exactly sure what these guys did, but they made a very psychedelic 60s record, which may have actually been recorded in the 60s. I'm not sure if they're spoofing or not, because there's a very, very elaborate story in here about the band. And I think it's a bit of make-believe, but these days, who knows?
We'll have to do a little bit of research on that.
Banging Colors.
I want to give a shout out too. In so many of our songs, we got an opportunity to use an artist named Laura Scarborough. Now, she used to live in Austin, but she married a Dutchman and moved to the Netherlands. And she is a phenomenal multi-instrumentalist, and she can sing. And you can really hear her beautiful piano part in Exile, but also her, haunting vibraphone stuff. And I mean, she's really, and I think that fans of hers will be listening to your podcast, I think. So I want to be sure to talk
Laura
about
Scarborough.
her.
She's great. And she came here not just with her keyboards, but with her little Frankenstein vibes, which there's a lot of vibraphone on the record. And some of it, I have a bow, like a violin bow that I make for drummers. It's a Simbo. It's a little heavier, a cymbal bow. And she started to use that on her vibes. So there's some really nice, eerie sounds that you might think it's a theremin, or which we've used on other records.
Yeah, it's on
but
Moonchild,
on this record,
right?
it's not.
She bows on Moonchild?
She bows on, in particular, Inner Garden, I think is really beautiful one. I have to send you all the tracks, Dario, so you can hear.
And who's on it, because Inner Garden
is a bit more of a tango piece with an accordion.
Well, Christian Costantini, who is actually an Air Italia pilot, but also a multi-instrumentalist, and he put that accordion on Inner Garden. It's
and he's a camper also. Here's a guy who gets a free flight every year. He's a pilot. He comes to the camp.
Actually, I did get the whole album from the PR agent, so I did listen to the whole thing already, and of course the accordion in Inner Garden is something very, very special that sticks out. That's also something I wrote down here actually. I do have two little recommendations for the Walkman section as well. And that would be also two female fronted bands with new records. One is a young French band called Obliq. They put out their debut EP By the Shore on January 31st. And last year, I think it was their first single. They released the song Indigo with a beautiful self-made animated music video, which I absolutely loved. And I just saw today by accident that the EP is actually out in the meantime, that has been released in the meantime. So I will definitely check that out. And we'll also put it in the Spotify playlist where I put a little some things where we also can hear Pat Mastelotto's playing that is on there. And the other one would be like a random discovery from today, actually. A project called The Weather Station, and they released I think it's the seventh album called Ignorance already on February 5th last week. And the single was called Robber that I discovered on Facebook. Someone shared it, and I checked it out, and it fits right with the vibe of this episode here. So these would be the two recommendations from my side in the Walkman section for today.
Taking it.
I could recommend your Lizard. You know, you just had Lizard on here with Katie, so a very good band. Not soft, but very good band. And I know they have a connection through your interview.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to the whole album from Lizard. It's also coming very, very soon, and we had them like 2 weeks ago here on the Progcast. Also very, very cool band, and I think when I interviewed them, I did the research and went on Setlist FM to check the when I saw them when I did saw them live, and it was with both times with Soen, with the Swedish prog metal band Soen. And then I saw that you guys with O.R.k, I think, played here in Munich as well. And I was not at that concert, but I couldn't remember why I couldn't go. I saw you with O.R.k in Kufstein at one point, I think, also many years ago.
Little tiny place.
Yes.
Little tiny. Yes.
was also very, very, very cool, and yeah, intimate setting.
Likes playing like that. Which of on our album, if you heard the whole thing, which was your favorite?
As I said, One Time I had a hard time getting into One Time because I loved the original so much. But on fourth or fifth listen, I was like, okay, this is going somewhere, and like it's finally getting to me. We already talked about Inner Garden just now, and the beautiful accordion there. It's like a little bit Piazzolla vibe. I don't know. I also, I mean, the opening double, Two Hands in Matakuda side, just perfectly sets the vibe. And what I also liked is the harp in Book of Saturday, or what is it, a harp? All right.
But I had her record herself separately. It's hard to explain, but usually you play a harp like this.
Yeah.
And she did that, and I said, okay, I'm going to move the microphones now, and I want you to just play this. I want you to just play this. I like to play it like so. Yeah.
No, that
Producer.
I thought there were different ways to place that harp, whether it sounds like a little music box in the middle,
yeah,
that's very small, or in the beginning, I think it sort of sounds like an African choral guitar, like a bass, an African bass being plucked.
Yeah,
So-
it fits beautifully. The arrangements are fantastic, and I'll be going back to this album quite a lot this year, I'm sure. Now that you just asked me my favorites, I actually would like to ask you, Pat, your favorite King Crimson songs from from before you joined, from after you joined, and your favorite live King Crimson song.
Oh, well, it's a huge catalog, and I'm so intimate with it. I love it all. Schizoid as a kid, Cat Food was the first thing I ever heard. Cat Food was like, I need to hear more of this band. I don't understand what they're doing, but I want to hear more. The Lark's Tongue and Aspic, Starless and Bible Black, Red. To me, that's the premier lineup. I mean, the original lineup was spectacular. And I love Ian Wallace, who played on several of the interim records, but those weren't necessarily my favorite records. But once they hit the 73, 74 band, fantastic. And then the 80s band, Discipline, is an incredible record. The whole record, you know, as a Crimson person, when that comes on, it's like, wow, it went beyond achieving the goal. You know, it achieves something entirely different. Those would be my favorites. Yeah. Favorite to play on stage every night.
Level 5.
Level 5. Yeah, level 5's a gas to play. The parts are they're natural. You know,
Yeah. And you also played with Stickman sometimes, or very often.
Yeah.
Right.
Different with whoever is playing it. It sounds different, but the same. It's great. Versatile people.
Very interesting as I find as whole albums. I mean, the catalog is huge, and I have to admit I have not heard every single King Crimson studio song there is. Let alone the bootlegs, and you'll never be finished with that. But I have to say, as far as whole albums go, actually the first and the last are my favorites.
I mean, the Court and Power to Believe.
Yes.
Is that what you first and last?
Yes.
They're good weekends. The Power to Believe. I'm glad we got to make that record. Would have been sad if we'd stopped with Construction of Light.
Yeah, the Power to Believe is so powerful. I don't know, with so kind of heavy, yet there's also some like very beautiful parts in it, and as far as whole album goes, but yeah, the one song that's like above all the others would be Starless.
Yeah.
Have you seen this incarnation live yet? Have you seen them do Starless yet?
When you came with your father?
It was it was a couple of years ago. So I'm
played it. We've only, with this current version of King Crimson, I think we've only done about 5 or 10 shows where we didn't play Starless. It's one of the songs that we play it more than anything else.
Yeah. So yeah, I have seen it. I think it was either the Monkey tour or one after that. The Monkey tour, where I'd never really remember the whole title.
Yeah, to unseat the monkey mind.
Radical action to unseat the monkey mind or whatever.
Hey, dig this, Dario. Sometimes when we're working on music with Robert, a piece of music or just a fraction, a chunk, might not be a whole song, just a modular piece, might be identified as Radical Action. And then another piece comes, it's Radical Action 2, Radical Action 3, 4. Now maybe tonight we're going to do Radical Action 2, and then we're going to go to Radical Action 5. I can't remember anymore. We did the same thing with The Power to Believe. It was Virtual Circle. Pretty soon I can't identify the names, and I'm in the band. I have to write something else to remind myself what that's called in my head.
Maybe one last question. Are you would you like to get the band together if it's possible and make another studio album?
Oh, you mean King Crimson?
Yes.
Then, yeah. It's been a Mr. question. No, I don't. I'm not chomping at the bit for that. I think basically we have a great recording studio on stage every night,
and a really good,
Good
really
engineers, good,
engineer. Some of those live records are so, I mean, most of them, all of them are great. And I have a couple of favorites, you know, that to me, it's as good as listening, you know, the way they put the songs together and the pacing. I don't know if you know this or not, but Pat doesn't get a set list until about 2:00 in the afternoon of the show. Like he doesn't, they change their set
That's
list
the way
every
when
day,
we work with Robert. Some
Yeah.
bands you play the same show every night.
but not this band. So it always, he wants it always to feel fresh and confusing. I think he likes he likes to throw the band members a little.
One thing I just remembered, the weather station band or project I mentioned, they have 2 drummers as well, interestingly enough.
Oh, really? Okay, right.
So that was like a second thing that matched this conversation here. Not only the female vocals, but also the 2 drummers. All right, I think we could go on and talk about music all night long. I mean, you guys still have the whole afternoon, I guess. Here it's getting dark behind me. It's almost 6 o'clock in the evening. Thank you so much for taking the time. It was great fun talking to you about music. Thank you guys out there for listening. Hope you go on to Bandcamp and check out the Mastelottos, The Romantics Guide to King Crimson, coming on February 14th, Valentine's Day. Take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones, and listen to great music.
The Progcast is a production of Stuus Media and is presented by the Prog Space. It is produced by Randy M. Salo, Janine Stengel-Lewis, Blake Lewis, and Dario Albrecht. Our theme music is by This Is Not an Elephant, and Van Kirsch does our graphics. New episodes of the Progcast drop every Monday and Thursday. And don't miss our Friday Top 5 episode where we discuss our favorite new releases from that week. For more interviews and reviews in the written form, check out theprogspace.com.